Chapter 14. A light bulb, a pencil sharpener, a coffee pot, and a sack of potatoes. Galileo was a great scientist, said Miss Drizzle. He was born in Italy in 1564 and died in 1642. He was the first person to use a telescope to study the stars, and he also helped figure out the laws of gravity. "Oh, I know about gravity," said Joe. Miss Jules pushed a computer out the window. It fell a lot faster than a pencil. "I don't think so," said Miss Drizzle. "Galileo proved that all objects fall at the same speed. He conducted a very famous experiment. He dropped lots of different objects off the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The Leaning Tower of Pisa is in Italy. It was built in..." Todd raised his hand. "You're getting a little boring," he said. "Oh, my goodness, am I?" asked Miss Drizzle. Rondi, Leslie, Paul, and Calvin nodded their heads. "I'm sorry," said Miss Drizzle. She thought a moment. "I know," she exclaimed. "Let's do the experiment here." The children cheered. They loved experiments. Miss Drizzle rubbed her hands together. "Let's see. We'll need a coffee pot, a pencil sharpener, a light bulb, and..." She thought a moment. "We need something heavy." "An elephant's heavy," said Benjamin. "There's no elephants in Wayside School," said Miss Drizzle. Everyone laughed. "How about a sack of potatoes?" asked Ron. "I bet Miss Mush has one." "Go see," said Miss Drizzle. "There's a coffee pot down in the office," said Stephen. "Go get it," said Miss Drizzle. "If I had a screwdriver, I could get the pencil sharpener off the wall," said Eric Fry. "I've got a screwdriver," said Jenny. "Can we use a fluorescent light bulb?" asked Bibi. She looked up at the ceiling. "I guess so," said Miss Drizzle. "How do I get it?" asked Bibi. "You're the scientist," said Miss Drizzle. "You figure it out." Bibi put her chair on top of her desk and stood on it. She still couldn't reach the ceiling. "Hey, Benjamin, let me have your chair." She put Benjamin's chair on top of hers, but she still wasn't tall enough. Calvin dumped the waste paper basket onto the floor. "Try this," he said. Bibi turned the trash can upside down and put it on top of Benjamin's chair. Then she climbed on top, but she still couldn't quite reach. Leslie brought the class dictionary. Jenny and Dana donated their math books. Sherry grabbed Miss Drizzle's old blue notebook. "Put that down," yelled Miss Drizzle. "Right now." Sherry dropped the notebook. Miss Drizzle's kindly old face had suddenly turned mean. "Don't ever touch that again," Miss Drizzle ordered. Sherry returned trembling to her seat. Everyone was staring at Miss Drizzle. She smiled sweetly. "Go back to what you were doing," she said. Jason threw Bibi his lunchbox. She set it on top of the books, then climbed on top. Standing on her tiptoes, she was able to pull the cover off the fluorescent light. She grabbed the light just as the pile collapsed beneath her. She fell to the ground, triumphantly holding the unbroken light bulb high above her head. Ron returned with a sack of potatoes from Miss Mush. Stephen returned with Mr. Kitzwatter's coffee pot. Eric Fry unscrewed the pencil sharpener from the wall. Miss Drizzle wrote, "Coffee pot, sack of potatoes, pencil sharpener, and light bulb" on the blackboard. "We're going to drop all 4 objects out the window at the same time," she said. "How many people think the coffee pot will hit the ground first?" "Is there coffee in it?" asked John. "It's about half full," Stephen reported. 8 kids thought the coffee pot would hit the ground first. 16 thought the sack of potatoes would hit the ground first. 3 thought the light bulb would be first. Only Terrence thought the pencil sharpener would hit first. Jason, Jenny, Joe, John, and Joy were the judges. Miss Drizzle sent them outside. Stephen held the coffee pot out the window. Bibi held the light bulb out another. Eric Fry held the pencil sharpener out another. And Ron held the sack of potatoes. Everyone else crowded around to watch. With everyone on the same side of the classroom, the school leaned a little bit, just like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. "On your mark, get set, let go," said Miss Drizzle. The objects fell through the air and smashed against the pavement. A short while later, the judges returned. Their clothes were spattered with coffee. Jenny had bits of potato in her hair. "Was the pencil sharpener first?" asked Terrence. It happened so fast, said Joe. They all hit about the same time. But the coffee pot had made the coolest explosion, said Jason. I think the light bulb hit the ground last, said John. Well, that's possible, said Mr. Zill. Gravity causes all objects to fall at the same rate, but air slows them down. That's called air resistance. And that's good. Otherwise, raindrops would kill us. Air resistance slows all things down a little bit, but it has a greater effect on very light objects, such as a piece of paper, and of course, the shape of the paper is important too. A crumpled up piece of paper will fall faster than... You're getting boring again, said Mac. Mr. Drizzle stopped talking. Now, we need a new pencil sharpener, said Leslie. Paul licked her ear.